Let us continue with the mouse and his child. They were high above the earth, the ground below them tilting in slow sweeps as the hawk soared in an updraft. The mouse child saw the dump in the distance, the railroad tracks and the swamp beyond them, the highway, the junkyard, the roofs of the town. The hawk circled, climbing higher. The child saw something and laughed. "You there," he said to the hawk. "What's in your mind?" said the marsh hawk. "You do a lot of talking for a small-sized kill." "What are you having for lunch today?" asked the child. "The usual thing," said the hawk. "Blood to drink and flesh to tear. Yours. I'm just working up an appetite, so it'll taste much better when I get home." "Screep, screep!" laughed the child. "What's so funny?" said the hawk. "You're not going to eat us," said the child. "That's how much you know," replied the hawk. "Didn't anybody ever tell you about the balance of nature? It's a beautiful pyramid with a lot of juicy mice and chipmunks down at the bottom and a hawk at the top. Naturally, the hawks eat up the mice and the chipmunks. That's how it is. I eat, and you get eaten." They were almost over the dump now. The mouse child saw the tin cans glinting in the sunlight. "It's all very well," he said, "but you won't eat us." "Yes, I will," said the hawk. "I'll take a little bite right now to show you what I mean." He tore at the tin bodies of the father and son and shrieked with pain as he chipped his beak. "Ah!" he said. "You aren't part of this balance of nature." He let them fall from his talons and flew away, shaking his head as he tried to get the taste of rusty tin out of his beak. Down dropped the mouse and his child, turning over and over in the air, the wind whistling through their tin as they plunged to the earth. They struck with a rattling crash, and the tin can slope that overlooked the fires, and the dump leaped and shattered in their vision as the impact broke their grip on each other's hands, split their bodies open, and flung them violently apart. Why does this always happen so suddenly? The scattered pieces of the mouse and his child lay on the path where the frog and they told their fortune, and they saw and heard no more. Oh. There's like 60 pages left. I'm getting excited about this. Below them, the winked red embers through the broken skeletons of umbrellas and the carcasses of old shoes, while flames flew up in wrecked bridge cages, singing where sounds long had been. Empty bottles and dead lights popped dully, and a stench rose with the drifting smoke and ashes. On the tracks beyond the dump, a freight train whistled. The wind sighed over the rubbish mountains. The rusty clockwork rolled from the wreckage of the father and came to rest nearby. A tiny snail crawled out of it and slowly made his way across the dented scraps of tin. Half of the child lay facing the fires, the other half turned blindly to the sky, where snow clouds drifted in the golden light of late afternoon. "No peace," said the bittern as he stomped home through the bogs. "No quiet, no privacy whatsoever. The world is constantly at one's door, chattering and squeaking and demanding to be wound up." I believe this is the bittern that was winding them up, and then they didn't go. He sighed and went back to the frog pound he had been building before the voices of the mouse and his child had distracted him. Well hidden in the marsh, an unfinished fence of stakes driven into the mud defined an enclosure which, when complete, would provide a place where his dinners might be kept fresh until a time they were needed. The bittern approached the stake, at which he had jumped off. He had left off, jumped onto the flat rock he had been using as a mallet, grasped it firmly in his toes, beat his wings, and lifted the rock as he raised himself into the air. He grunted, and brought the rock down on the stake. Bonk! Then he let out his breath out. Choom! He repeated the process, pumping and thumping like a small pile driver as the rock went up and down steadily until the stake was driven in among its fellows. When the fence was complete and the frog pound ready to be stalked, the bittern waded off, his shoulders hunched, his neck flattened S-curve, and his long sharp beak moving crankily forward and back with each step. In a few minutes his little yellow spectacle eyes brightened as he came upon a large bullfrog wearing a grease-stained canvas work glove, who sat on a tussock and stared open-mouthed at that part of the sky where the marsh hawk had just passed overhead. The bittern pointed his beak straight up and swayed invisibly among the reeds while his downward-looking eyes examined the frog minutely. Having judged from the plumpness of the glove that the frog was sufficiently tender for the evening meal, the bittern was about to dart his beak forward at his prey when he spoke. "Stop," said the frog. "Destiny is not to be trifled with. Do not commit the tragic error of satisfying present appetite at the cost of future fulfillment." "What's that you say?" asked the bittern, drawing back in alarm. "Ah, my friend," bellowed the frog, puffing out his yellow throat and blowing himself up as large as possible. To how many of us is given the opportunity of seizing what priceless moment in which the tangled threads of mingled facts can be unsnarled and woven warp and woof into their preordained design. What? asked the unnerved Frogstalker. Where? Warp who? Woof what? Quickly, boomed the frog. Follow that hawk and take me as your passenger. Even as he spoke, he rapidly wove a little sling of reeds in which the bird might carry him. It had taken him a long time to find a new glove, and he was taking no chances of slipping out of this one. Destiny does not wait, he said. Make haste, I shall explain all as we travel. The bass that had swallowed the good luck coin swam back to his nesting hollow, the line trailing behind him until the drum caught in the root. Then the knot that tied to the coin came undone, the line slid out of the fish's throat, and a nutshell drum bobbed once more to the surface. And the bass was free. Not bad, he said with a chuckle as he felt the coin's cool smoothness in his stomach. Highly satisfied with himself, he tidied up his little hollow, patrolled its borders aggressively, inquired of the neighboring bass whether there had been any messages, and swam off in search of a new adventure. He found it in a quiet corner of the pond where slanting sunlight came down in long rays through the shadows of the leaves, and something shiny was descending slowly through the waters. It was a tin seal, at the end of a fishing line, wiggling her tail and flapping her flippers. The metal rod that had once held the ball was now ornamented with bright feathers that slowly, seductively revolved. Several fishhooks dangled below the feathers like the seal's worn tin glinted in the green-lit waters. Like the motionless child, she had long ago broken the clockwork rule of daytime silence, and now she sang softly, as if to herself. Just a little lonely maybe, thinking of you only, baby. I'm going to remember that. I love you, Christy. Holy smoke, said the bass. Look at that action. I'm going to re-say that in a better voice. Holy smoke, said the bass. Would you look at that action? Churning the water as he worked up speed, he struck, hooked himself with the seal, and was hauled up onto the pond of the branch of the birch tree where the kingfisher sat. Beside the bird was a string bag that contained his fishing equipment, spare hooks and lines that he had salvaged, and a little can of oil which he kept the seal in operating condition. Good work, said the kingfisher. Stocky, handsome, and sporty-looking, with an honest beak, a frazzled chest, and a friendly eye, a bachelor whose love for solitary fishing trips had kept him from ever settling down. He found the tin seal both a charming companion and an efficient helper. He took the bass from the hook and clubbed it to death on the branch. This is so dark sometimes. Then he coiled up his line, oiled the seal carefully, and cleaned the fish, putting the coin, when he found it, into the string bag, when he sat down and enjoyed a hearty lunch. Funny thing happened when you were underwater, he said to the seal. He described the emergence of a mouse and his child from the pond, their winding up by the bittern, and their subsequent capture by the hawk. 2 wind-up mice, said the seal. Was one big and one little? Blue trousers, patent leather shoes? One big and one little, said the kingfisher. Their parts had been blue a long time ago. No shoes. Noticing the nutshell drum floating on the pond below him, he interrupted the conversation to fetch it and add it to the kit. 2 wind-up mice, the seal repeated. I wonder if they're the same ones I used to know. She remembered how the child had cried, not wanting to go out into the world. Which way did the hawk go? She asked. He was heading for home, said the kingfisher. He lives in the swamp on the other side of the dump across the railroad tracks. He can't eat them, said the seal. I wonder if he dropped them. If he has, we'll probably hear about it in the lake sports final, said the kingfisher. Feel like flying over towards the swamp for a look around? Let's, said the seal. The kingfisher packed his gear, put her into the string bag, and they took off. I love that she has a happy relationship with the seal. It makes me really happy. When the kingfisher and the bittern were following the marsh hawk, another bird was ahead of them, caught in the same trail. The blue jay, too, had seen the harrier and his prey, avid for the disaster and eager for a headline. He pursued his story at top speed, and was in time to see the mouseless child fall. The blue jay's shadow glided over the child's broken face as the reporter circled low for a close look at the wreckage, then soared up in the warm air from the fires. Late sports final, he screamed. Wind up, wind up, crash, and dump. No survivors. The jay scanned the immediate vicinity for late scores, yelled, Dung Beetle's blank roach in first game of doubleheader, and flew away, leaving behind him silence broken only by the crackle of the flames and the burning trash. The kingfisher heard the news, but altered his course head toward the sound of the blue jay's voice. The frog heard and urged the bittern to fly faster. Manny Rat heard it too. He'd been looking up in the sky, impatient for the dark, when he heard the hawk drop something over the dump, and now he kept his eye on the spot marked by the blue jay. Iggy, he called, and Ralphie's successor, an equally ill-flavored young rat, stocky build, no scruples whatsoever, hurried to his master's side. What's up, boss? Said Iggy. Get over to the bridge on that side of the fire, said Manny Rat, and see if you can find a couple of wind-ups. Iggy saluted and shuffled off as directed. It couldn't be those two, mused Manny out loud. And yet he was disquieted. His heart was beating faster and his head began to ache a little. Months ago, on return to the dump, he had let it known that the fugitive windups had been brought to a final accounting after a long and arduous chase. And the reaction of the general public had been one of heightened respect for him. Was he to be made a fool once again, he wondered? Anxiously he watched the departing figure of his lieutenant, and looked beyond him into the distant Tin Can Ridge. No, he said. It couldn't be those two, but on the other hand, who else would drop out of the sky like that? He frowned and looked across the Rebridge Mountains to the setting sun. And we'll continue this soon. We're getting closer, and I'm really, really, really happy how that all pulled together with the seal. Also, I'm going to say that those two birds, the bittern and the kingfisher, get a little wubby-dubby, like all these birds, because it said the kingfisher was always far too sporty and enjoyed those trips to settle down. And the bittern was always complaining about privacy. So hopefully something's going to come of that. I really hope the birds get together and have little bird babies. In the meantime, I love you, Christy. I'll be home so soon. Oh, I cannot wait. It's killing me. I love you dearly, Christy. Sleep well, keep calm, Fadlama, Carrie Ann. And I'll be home before you know it. I love you, Christy. Good night.